Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Key Ingredient Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Leigh Clark. Leigh is on a mission to make a difference. Between a busy career transforming businesses at a large technology company to running her own charity, Kindly, Leigh is, in fact, making a difference. Leigh is a best-selling author, a speaker. She's been interviewed on The Rachel Ray Show, Megyn Kelly Show, TEDx, The Today Show, Good Morning America, and many, many others. And now we can add to that list the Key Ingredient Podcast. I'm really excited to have you as our guest here today, Leigh. Thanks for joining me. So here, people ask me often, why do I even do this podcast? And to be quite honest, I do it for fun. I do it because it gives me the opportunity to speak to successful people in all different aspects of their life, of what they've done to make a difference. And to be very honestly, you're one of the biggest reasons I do something like this, because I am so excited to be able to share your story. I know a lot of people know it. I know it fairly well, and I'm honored to be able to share it with our audience today. So for most people, we go through times in our lives where we go through a traumatic experience, and a lot of times I like to say it's how we deal with those experiences. And you, like many others, have gone through those type of situations. In fact, back in 2008, at age 29, you lost your job. Take us back to that moment. What happened? Because your life changed from that moment on. And just bring us back a little bit to kind of what happened, what you were feeling, and what you were going through.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I really, at the foundation of everything I do, I want other people to have access to another mood alternative booster. Like, people don't understand that giving actually feels good. And this is my story as to why I got involved in this and why I'm such an evangelist for kindness. So I was very much career driven, still am. Peep my LinkedIn. I'm very driven and focused on my career, and I want to make a difference in that. And I lost my job. I was director of marketing at a software company in New York. I had a nice office. I was super proud of myself. My ego felt great. And I lost that job. The recession hit and I was let go. And I had to sit with myself, which is usually a very uncomfortable process for most people. But also I was like, oh my God, like, who am I without my job? Again, having come out of college, got a career, did the things, checked the boxes. And now what? Like, without my job, who am I? Like, when people ask, what do you do? And I'm like, I sit on my parents' couch, so it exposed a side of myself that I'd never really looked at, right? And what was my purpose? And so I did get another job, and I thought, like, hey, I'm back on the horse. I'll feel great. But I didn't. I was now having this almost existential crisis about there has to be more to me than work. And I continued to excel at work the way I have always have, but I knew I needed more. And for me, whenever I gain weight, I'm unhappy. For other people, there's various reasons. Some people are happy or heavier, and I'm good with that. For me, I feel like I gain weight to insulate myself from the world. And I gain weight to put distance between me and everyone else because I'm going through a tough time. And so I was overweight, underwhelmed, and just this nagging, what the heck is your purpose thing was underneath. So one holiday season, because I'm extra AF, as the kids say, I decided I was going to do 30 days of hot yoga, juicing, and a random act of kindness every day, like mind, body, soul. Now, mind you, I was well over 200 pounds. So 90 minutes of hot yoga, Bikram yoga was a struggle. I did it. The juicing through holiday parties where I just wanted to chew something, even celery, was hard, but I did it because I made that commitment. But the first random act of kindness I did, I think I went and paid off a stranger's layaway. It was $38 at Walmart. And I felt so good. And I was like, oh my God, that made me feel so good. Selfishly, I was like, I want to do more of that because that gave me that feeling, that sense of I was making a difference, and not for work's sake, but just for humanity's sake. And then I realized the other person felt good too. I didn't meet them, but I assume when somebody paid their stuff, they felt lucky or chosen. And then I decided to share it online. My motivation being I wanted other people to be able to access this joy. I see so many people look for shopping or gambling or drinking or anything to escape life. Escapism is key. But when we give, we escape ourselves, and it doesn't have to be a huge commitment. It's nice if you can, but most people feel like they don't have the money, they don't have the time, or maybe they feel like they're not that nice. I didn't think I was that nice. I've become like the poster child for nice, but that was my motivation. And like with anything you do that's new, and people at in 2010, it was at the time, people didn't put a lot of stuff on Facebook. Like they'd put like, "Oh, I ate turkey for dinner." Like it was really
pictures of breakfast
pictures
and
of
lunch
breakfast
and
and like their grandkids.
yeah.
So when I started sharing kind acts, it was controversial, which is weird. Like, why is that controversial? But I was met with a lot of like, you give in secret, that's self promotion, like you're looking for a cookie or a trophy or acknowledgement. And I have this thing that I hold, it's one of my values. If I'm defensive about something, there might be some truth in it. And if I inspect it and there's no truth in it, I can move forward, right? So I felt a little triggered by that. Like, why are people questioning me? And I had to sit with it. What's your real motivation here? Is
Sure.
it for the acknowledgement? Is it for the Atta girls? Or is it really, because you just want to transform lives and help people suffering in all aspects? And when I realized it was definitely the latter, because when I did those acts of kindness, I still ran away. I wasn't like, wasn't I nice? Can I thank you for thanking me? Can I get a hug?
Yeah.
But I wanted to share it online just so other people were inspired or felt some joy. And once I gut checked that, it was on. It was on.
Wow. So, okay, let's, you just gave us a lot. That was
Yes,
really important.
sorry.
So, no, I'm so glad you did,
I'm a
because
talker.
you went through that period of time again. Okay. Tough period of time. You tried to reevaluate your life. You end up getting another job. And then around 2010, I think you said, is when you paid off the layaway, $30 for a stranger.
Yeah.
Let's go back to that, because I'm a big in the moment person.
Yeah.
What built up to that? So what happened the day before or 2 days before? What made you actually want to do that?
Yeah, so I didn't have much money, obviously. I was like and part of the reason I was depressed was I didn't have much money. So I learned a long time ago that money is just another word for resource. And if you're resourceful, you can usually solve your problem. And if you ask for help and tell people what you're working on, they'll show up. So I started doing the acts of kindness, had very little money. I realized you can call 211 in most places and you will be connected to the United Way. And people who don't know what the United Way does, they are a conduit for giving. So they teach you where you can go. So if you say, I have a bunch of towels and blankets and stuff, they'll say, this dog shelter needs it. But they're a really good resource for how can I help? So I would call them and say, are there any volunteer opportunities today? And one day it was like stirring the ducks for the duckeries at the bell tower fountain.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, like I was just open when I had time. And this particular day, I didn't have time. They didn't have something that was aligned with my schedule. So I was like reading online because there were sites for it. And I was like, what could I do for random acts of kindness? And somebody said, pay off a stranger's layaway. Now, these days there's not layaway, and we'll talk about that later. But I went to Walmart. They actually had a Good Samaritan button on the register, which I was like, this is so cool. A, I'm not the only one.
Right.
And B, like, it's easy, right? And I said, well, since you have a button, is there any way for you to look up one that's just like toys and stuff? Because I wanted to make sure it was for kids.
Sure.
I wasn't buying someone a flat screen I couldn't afford. So I said under $50. And they found this one that had like Frozen toys and stuff on it. And she said, it's $38. I'm like, great. And this girl was so nice. She went in the back to bring out and show me what it had paid for. And then, while of course, most of the time I do things like that, I don't meet the people. Seeing what it paid for was so cool. And like, I could envision like kids being excited. Now for them, it probably came from Santa, but being that, force for good for their parents who were, in a position that they had to put $38 on layaway and pay it off over time. It must have been really nice to just get one like break. Yeah.
Wow, I love that. So you did that. So were you hooked at that point?
Yes.
I mean,
oh my God.
So after you did that, you took care of that layaway. You made someone's holiday. What happened after that?
Yeah. So after that, I was like hooked, right? So like with any addiction, you're like, how am I going to?
That's a good addiction,
Yeah.
though. It could be a lot worse than
so
that.
is running. I haven't gotten into that one yet, but I hear it's great. But with anything you want to do and pursue with passion, and honestly, what most people say is like, I don't have the money. Again, knowing that money is another word for resource, I'm like, well, your resources like your gifts, talents, and abilities, right? And that's how you go out into the world. You do what you do. In your case, you're helping people every day. that's your gift is connecting people and using your voice for good, right? So I'm like, well, what am I good at? And I had just started painting. I just started doing some art. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to sell these paintings and use the money to fund these acts of kindness. So I opened an art line called Kindly Art. That was the beginning.
Was it online?
It was online, but I went to farmers market. So I was at the Cape Coral farmers market every Saturday morning. My girlfriend would come. She's so nice. And my friend Terry, she's since moved to Buffalo, but we would set up a little tent. We would pay her $50 for the tent and hope to God we made more than $50, which most days we didn't. But that's how I funded it to begin with. And as that grew, I realized maybe I should get into fundraising because that would help me multiply resources.
Sure.
Yeah, there's multiplication when you ask for help.
Well, you're right about that. So, okay, so you started, so from the sale of the paintings, you started accumulating money and you started getting donations. So then what? So then you had this big pot of, we won't call it money, we'll call it resources, right? Stick with the theme. You had this big pot of resources.
Yeah.
And then what? Was there?
I would say small.
Small. Well, okay.
Now I have a bigger pot of resources.
So it was a smaller pot. But what was the plan? Did you kind of outline a strategy of this is what I'm going to do? And was it only focused on children? Was it focused on families? What is it just focused on everybody?
Yeah, we tried in the beginning, especially to align to causes that are near and dear to my heart. Later, I'll tell you about when we had our first gala, but there's so many in Southwest Florida. Southwest Florida is one of the biggest areas for charitable giving. Like there's so many organizations. So whatever money I had, one of the things I like about random acts of kindness is it could be as little as nothing. I mean, honestly, just giving somebody a good review online is like an act of kindness.
Sure.
Like, honestly. But I could pick small things like buying a stranger a lotto ticket or things like that. So I sought to stretch the resources as much as I could to affect people. But yeah, we did some of the earliest campaigns we did was like a homeless backpack drive, which we do every year now, where we get critical supplies to the homeless, mostly in the summer, because people don't think about the summer elements as much as they think about the winter. But if you live here, it's torture.
Oh, yeah.
It's another kind of winter. So we did that. We got school supplies out to foster kids. That's another thing we would fundraise for. And then we started doing an act of kindness on Valentine's Day for women and children who are victims of domestic violence or human trafficking.
Wow.
Because that's a really tough day. A lot of people go back to abusers on Valentine's Day feeling unloved, feeling unnoticed, and like undervalued. So we went, Dollar Tree and big balloons and candy for the kids. And then we went, in this case, we went to ACT, Abuse Counseling and Treatment, which is here in Southwest Florida, and partnered with them. And, I remember trying to get the address of a women's shelter. And apparently that's something they don't give out for obvious reasons.
Sure.
Duh. But I was like, where's the place? And they're like, I don't know if we can tell you.
Can't tell you that.
So once they were able to verify me, we did that. And again, kept sharing it online. I remember early on, we used to auction off paintings to grow a following. And yeah, it's evolved so much since then. We're still doing art. Now it's bigger.
Okay.
So now we have a program called Generous Graffiti, and we donate murals to nonprofits.
Wow.
So we've done one at Shell Factory Nature Park, right when you walk in on the left. My mom and I did that one, and my father and I actually did sunflowers for Hope Clubhouse in Southwest Florida. So that's still part of it. And then we donate a lot of artwork for charity, like Arts for Act is coming up. We're donating for them. Our Mother's Home has something coming up. We're donating for them. So yeah, we do the individual acts because we can stretch the dollar really far, but we also try to really shine the light on these organizations that are, have a very specific mission and focus.
Wow, so it's come a long way. So you went from surprising strangers to now you, from time to time, actually meet the people that you're helping, right?
Oh yeah.
So what's that like?
It's interesting. I just was at Burlington yesterday. So like I had mentioned earlier, a layaway program has gone away in many states. We found out by showing up places like in New York. I flew up there and it's like, oh, there's no layaway. I'm like, what are we going to do? So now we've pivoted to paying at the registers. But I was at Burlington paying at the registers, and I loved Burlington for so long because they had year-round layaway, so I could do it all year. And I was up at the register, and I walked up to some people, and I'm like, "Hey, I run a charity. We fundraise all year. I would love to pay your layaway. And this lady was like, no, I don't need it. I'm like, no, I know you don't need it. I'm just saying, like, I just want to do something nice. Like, she's like, no, really, do it for someone else. I was like, oh, okay. Person behind her said no. Person behind her said no. And that used to bother me too, like that they didn't understand my intention or they couldn't receive it. As I age, with age comes beautiful wisdom. I realized that how other people receive giving is not my business. Like, that is comprised of the millions of tiny moments that made them who they are.
Sure.
It doesn't have to do with me. It has to do with how they receive giving, and people are entitled to receive it or leave it. That's up to them. If it doesn't sit well with them, I'd rather not pay money for somebody to feel bad. Like, that's not a good use of money. It's not the purpose. So I'm less attached to the outcomes now. But I posted a TikTok about it, and I'm like, it's interesting how some people see giving as judgment on or pity on them. And when I just randomly pick people, literally. But also, like, people's opinions on judgment, that's their stuff too. And it's like, if they're not going to receive it the right way, to me now, at least they thought about kindness. At least they thought about how they feel about giving. At least they have like some story of like, can you believe this crazy lady thought I needed my layaway babe?
Do you get that often or?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes. What surprised me most in the beginning was like the haters like emerged. Some woman unfriended me and posted about how could someone do this? Does she just need validation and likes and blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
Like I said before, that she was actually a great teacher, because that was one of the first times I had to sit with opinions, and I'm glad she had the guts to say it out loud so I could inspect it. But now I've realized something, and I think this is so important for anybody who's out there trying to influence or trying to create and make content. When you reach a large enough audience as the kindness lady, like, who's going to have a problem with that? When you reach an audience that's large enough, you will find haters. It's actually a really good indication that you're making a difference.
What you just said is what I say often, and you're right about
Yes.
that. I mean, if you're active enough and you're doing enough good things and you're on the internet, you're doing all these things and people see you, you're going to find people who are going to hate on that, right?
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I mean, rather than look at that as a negative against yourself, which it could do that, right? It could make you start questioning things, as you had mentioned before. It does validate that what you're doing is also a great thing.
Yeah, and listen, like, emotional responses, whether they're negative or positive, you've still managed to like create an emotional response. And like they say, like, all press is good press. When I went to Vegas one time and decided to pay people $5 each in the casino. They're all there to get money. Like, I was literally handing it out. First, I went to security to make sure they didn't think I was a prostitute.
Sure. Okay.
Like, because it's Vegas.
Probably a good idea. That's smart.
Like, and plus, to be safe, if somebody sees you handing out money, it's a city of sin. Like, I just wanted somebody having my back. But it was almost a social experience.
Yeah.
Experiment, because when I would ask one person and they would say no, the two people behind them would say no. When I would ask someone and they would say yes, the two people behind them would say yes. When I put it online, people freaked out. Like, why aren't you helping the homeless? I'm like, because everybody goes through stuff. You don't know whose brother just died in a car accident. You don't know who just, battled alcoholism. You don't know who can't pay their bills and they're in Vegas just trying to make $1. Like,
sure.
Kindness is not exclusive for people who don't have financial problems. Like, and by the way, if you think that money is going to solve all those problems, life still happens. So it bears no filter for the rich, in that way. So I've always just given, and like with random, you don't know someone's story. You don't know their eligibility. It's not my place to judge.
That's a tough thing for you. I was thinking about that, when we were preparing for this, that you don't know their eligibility. And that's that makes it tough. I mean, listen, we're both originally from New York.
Yes.
And I think we could both kind of agree that when you're walking down the street in New York and someone offers you something of kindness, the first thing you respond is, no, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Right? Or you just don't look at them.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I mean, that's just kind of the reaction. But so I would imagine you would get that.
Yeah. And two stories to that. One time, just my act of kindness was smiling at people in New York. And I called my brother who was living in Brooklyn at the time. I just kept the New York territory for sales because those are my people and they get my personality.
Sure.
So I was like, my act of kindness today was I smiled at 50 people. Guess what? No one smiled back. He's like, yeah, that's because in New York, if you smile at people, they think you're effing crazy.
Sure they do. Yeah.
Or you're out to like sell them something or put lotion on them or something, like New Yorkers don't play. And so I was at a Goodwill recently doing acts of kindness for the holidays. And I found that Goodwill is a great place for me to pay at the register because almost everyone there appreciates kindness, but they're shopping on a budget or like
they might be eligible.
Yeah,
right,
they might be eligible.
Yeah.
Like they're being financially savvy by shopping at Goodwill. I like it because it's a treasure hunt. So I go in there and the first thing the cashier says to me, I said, I only have 100. Can you break change for me? I'm going to be paying for some people's purchases. And he's like, I don't know if I can let you do that. And I was like, why? It's my money.
Yeah, why?
Like why? And I said, no, I run a charity. It's like we do this nationally. Like we just want to bless some people today. He's like, I'm gonna have to ask my supervisor.
Oh my God. So you have to justify this every time. I mean, wow.
Yes. And so I'm like, okay, Leigh, we're doing this not attached to other people's stuff and we're not judging. Like I need to be accepting. Like maybe he doesn't want to lose his job. Maybe he's nervous.
Sure.
Like, maybe it's not like I'm not being taken the way I want to be received, but maybe there's other stuff he's got. So just make peace with it. So then the supervisor comes out and she's all like, well, I don't think we can do this here. I'm like, listen, I do it all over the place. It's a charity and people can say no themselves. Like you don't have to blanket protect everybody. But ultimately, like, it's my money. She's like, well, I don't even think we have change of 100. I was like, okay, well, I'll use my debit card then. So I proceeded and I pushed on and almost everyone, I think, accepted the kindness. I met some woman who just moved there from Canada who was overjoyed because people are so nice.
Yeah.
And had great experiences. And the manager came up to me at the end of it. And she said, I hope you understand. And I said, I think you might be from New York, both by her accent and the attitude. And
the accent does give it away usually. Yeah.
I said, I honestly didn't receive it as you weren't being supportive. I received it as you were trying to protect your customers and you were trying to do what's right for other people. And you were trying to insulate them from anybody doing something that might be questionable or like just, I see it as you keeping your customers safe. And she's like, I'm so glad you received it that way because that's how I intended to do. I'd rather insult you but protect 10 people. That's where I come from. And so I think there's a lesson in that is like, we want to be received a certain way in every aspect, every post, every conversation with a loved one. But our attachment and our defensiveness to how they receive us, instead of just saying like, let me give them the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, this is how I'm receiving you. Is that how you intended? It opens up so much because I think we're always fighting ourselves through everyone else. And we're always fighting how we want to be seen versus how we're received.
Sure.
And if we just like let it go and imagine that person has everyone thinks they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
It's our own egos that are like, oh, you think I'm not great and kind? Who are you? You're mean. I just don't do that with people anymore.
I just think it's amazing how you get resistance when you do this.
It's crazy.
But it doesn't surprise me either because, I mean, I guess that tells us something. There should be more kindness, right? Then it wouldn't seem so strange.
Yeah.
One of the things, I mean, first of all, Kindly is a great name, by the way. I mean, just really brilliant.
A little self-serving,
but that's okay. That's okay. I won't give you negative opinions based on that.
My son's trying to go by Kind Carter these days.
Oh, so Kind Carter.
Make it happen.
Well, you mentioned your son, so let's go there a second. Adorable child. So what are you teaching your son about this?
So
what's he learning?
Through the hurricane has been like the biggest blessing for us because one, he's been challenged to face adversity. We've lived in 5 places in the last 50 days. From Fort Lauderdale to Miami to Anna Maria Island to Englewood, like we've been everywhere. So he's become really resilient and adaptable, but he's also been with me a lot, especially the first 2 weeks before he could go back to school. And so I was like, you're going to come with me to do some acts of kindness today, buddy, because that's what helps me. And he, the first night we went and brought flowers to the lobby of our building in Miami. And we're not used to living in an apartment building, but we were. And they had a little restaurant. We went in and he's like giving it out to all these ladies and like feeling so good. And he's like, that's my mom. That's Kindly.
I'm sure they didn't resist him doing that. Of course not.
Trying to give him money. I'm like, oh my God. I'm not. No, we're not. Yeah, no. I mean, people have to do what they have to do, but I'm not trying to exploit my child to even to fundraise. And they understood that. They just wanted to like show him that they appreciated it. And sometimes money is the way to do that. But since then, even with the holiday acts of kindness. So for those who follow me, they'll know for the last 10 years, I do an act of kindness in honor of that first year every day from Thanksgiving to Christmas.
Yeah.
And he was getting upset because he wants to watch the videos every day. He's like, well, when do I get to go? When do I get to be kind? I love holding the door for people. So last night I took him to Dollar Tree and we taped dollars to the back of products.
Did you
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. I once did it with toys, but realized that's a really bad idea because kids are going to just rip through every toy to find where the dollars are. And
Sure.
that's not fun for the Dollar Tree
So you
staff.
put on the back of a toy. So
Yeah.
they're looking at these toys and they see dollars in the back. So the first
They
thing
can't see them.
they
Usually
can't see
they're
them.
hidden.
Okay, I was gonna say the first thing I would do is look for the camera, right? Thinking it was on TV or something
right?
like that.
Like where's Ashton Kutcher?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's gonna jump out. No, I stopped doing the toy thing because I know kids won't be as respectful. Like adults, if they find it on the back of hand towels, they're not going to rip through all the hand towels.
Sure.
But you know what? The internet does keep me honest because you get comments from people who are like, hey, maybe the reason people said no to you at Burlington is because you used the word charity instead of organization. I'm like, good point. So the internet's great for perspective. And someone said, oh, if I were a kid, I would have ripped every toy out. I'm like, oh my God, they probably did.
You're learning something from, yeah.
So we did that. And then I asked him if he wanted to pay for somebody at the register. And so we walked up to this really nice woman. She's like a nurse who just got off duty and said, I'm teaching my kid about acts of kindness. Can we pay for your stuff? And it was like $25. And he's like, wait, how does it work? But he loves it. He loves it now. And I really waited a long time for my son to tell me what he likes.
Sure.
So before he was born, I was writing for HuffPost.
Mm-hmm.
And I shared a lot about my fertility journey and IVF and like the road to adoption and the adoption process. And then he was born and I felt like I had to finish the story. And I said, my last piece, I said, I'd love to tell you how kind his birth mom is, but that's her story. I'd love to tell you about how he came into the world. That's his story. I don't know if he's somebody who wants the internet to know more about him than he knows about himself. So respectfully, I'm going to take a bow and stop writing for a while because now my story is not just mine, which is the happiest moment of my life.
Yeah, that's smart. Wow, that's great. I love that. So I know you stress obviously kindness and how important it is to be kind to others, but you also say it's also important to be kind to ourselves.
Yes.
Explain that a little bit if you don't mind.
Oh, it's a personal journey because people who know me really well, like my Fab Five, my core people, they're always like, yeah, you're nice to everybody else, but you're not nice to yourself. And I'm like, that's true. But I didn't really know how to get there because to me, I see myself through the lens of potential criticism. I've always wanted people to understand my heart and my motivations. So I'm recently going through a divorce and I'll share as much as I can without bringing the other person's information online. But, we were together 13 years and he fundamentally thinks I'm not a good person. And I know that's untrue. So I've been really fighting myself through that mirror. But recently I'd learned to accept the fact that like he needs that truth to make himself feel better about the loss.
Sure.
So if he villainizes me, then it's like good riddance, and that's how he needs to process it. And it's not about me, it's about him. And if that's what he needs, that's okay. Whatever story he needs to feel better. I just want him to be happy. I want him to know he is always going to be loved. I respect anyone who spends time on my journey with me. But also, like, if he doesn't know my heart, why do I need the internet, who I have no idea who they are, to be invested in who the hell I am?
Right.
And why does that, predicate whether I'm not skinny enough or I'm not pretty enough or I'm not working hard enough? Like, why does that make me feel less than? And so he's also been my greatest teacher in the fact that once I could let go of the fact that other people's opinions of me really, it's not that they're not my business, because I don't think that's 100%, that they're not necessarily a reflection of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And all I have to live with every breath until I die is me. I'm stuck with her.
Sure.
So we starting to get along now. It's like I lay my head down and I'm like, you did your best today. You tried to grow up a little bit every day. You're only competitive with the person you were yesterday. You try to put goodness into this world. What else? What is it? You're human. It's not enough. Like this morning I overslept and my kid was late for school and I felt like incredible mom guilt. But it's like, does that make me a bad person? No, it makes me human. And like there's some humor in your humanity. There's some like self-love. So that's been a journey. And like now my platform, especially on my motivational speaking page and TikTok page, is really about not just kindness to others, but tools to help you be kind to yourself, releasing some of the judgment we attach ourselves to.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's smart. So thank you for sharing that. By the
Yeah.
way, I appreciate that. So
Yeah.
the kindness movement, as
Yeah.
we'll call it
Yeah.
here. So really, what's your hope for this? I mean, where do you want this to go?
Yeah, no, we're on to big things. I think first as a human, I'm ready to share perspective with anyone who needs it, and I have full belief that it will reach the right people. So it is my job, in my opinion, to repurpose the things that I've been painful for me that I've grown through to help someone else, and I'm willing to do that. I'm also ready for anybody who wants to come for me and hate on me because it's very reflective of where they sit, and I'm okay with that. Like that's not going to deter me, and I think that deters a lot of people from having a big voice. So yeah, there's a lot of upcoming like brand partnerships and things we're doing. Most excitingly, I just became the VP of kindness for Kind Humans. If you haven't peeped them, it's kindhumans.com. And they actually their foundation is a marketing company, which is my background, for nonprofits to help turn the tides of negativity on content online, but also to take little tiny candles and create a bonfire and to help expose these people who don't have budgets to really get exposure and give them the marketing tools that big enterprises have. So that's really cool. I'm working for them pro bono. I'm part of their strategy team. You guys can see me rocking their trucker hats everywhere I go, which, like I was saying to Stefan before we started the podcast, when you wear a kindness hat, like people actually do treat you nicer. They're like, they have to look at themselves and they have to show up a little bit kind and also assume the best from you. So it's a win-win. But I'm so open to whatever comes my way, and I really just want to help people. I think when you step into your purpose, I'll say this: the highest human experience is generosity of spirit. It's also transcendence. And all of the religious leaders you've known and loved from centuries have stepped into that love, acceptance, tolerance.
Sure.
And I was having a conversation with a friend. World peace is not we all agree, because that's never going to happen.
No.
It's that we all accept that everybody is individual and that their ideas and their judgments are not a reflection of you. So, with all that being said, I know that I can really help shine the light for a lot of people, and I want to just continue on that path. And I really hope and know that like the work I'm doing is changing the world.
Sure.
There's a quote that says, "Those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who actually do."
Yeah. Love that.
Yes.
Love that. I love your story.
Thank you.
For anyone listening or watching right now, how can they help you? How can they contribute to this movement, get
Yeah.
involved, whether it's through resources, through time? What can they do?
Yeah, so resources, we always need resources, right? It helps us do bigger things. The bigger things we do that we can share, bring more people into the movement. It changes their content. So dollars always help. But what I like to remind people is, and not just for us, like we love other nonprofits and we like to spotlight them. Liking, sharing, commenting on these posts helps with visibility.
Sure.
Most people don't want to because they think, oh God, I'm going to seem like I'm cheap because I liked it, but I didn't donate. The donation is the exposure. So help people have a voice, help us have a voice. It's kindly.org. So it's KINDLEIGH, which will be in all your stuff. But
Yes.
in case you're just listening, it's kindly. I'm an adverb. So I used to also be ornamentally when I painted ornaments.
Okay.
Kindly.org. Yes. And we would love the support. Kindhumans.com. We'd love the support. But just, go out and do something nice, be kind to yourself, be patient. Like we're all never going to get out of this thing alive. We all have a choice how much power we give other people. It depends on if they're a resource to you or not. So check that too. And just be kind to yourself, treat yourself with the same grace and dignity you would treat a best friend. Give yourself as much space as you would for them to be human.
Sure. At the end of the day, life is too short, isn't it?
It is.
It really
is.
Yeah.
And use it for what matters. In closing, I'll say I have a theory about what happens in the afterlife because none of us know. We all think we're right, but none of us know. So it's founded on a lot of religious principles, but this is why there is a plus sign in our logo. And it goes like this. So I think of your time here as your energy. And when you die, you become energy because energy cannot be created nor destroyed, right? So if you're largely negative, maybe you become negative energy, like dark matter. Maybe that's hell, right?
Sure, sure.
Maybe when people see the bright light, it's because they're turning into positive energy because they serve their life with positivity. And so they're a higher frequency. And maybe if you're neutral and you just walk around picking up everybody else's energy all day, you become, limbo, whatever. So like you really don't have a charge. So it's kind of like maybe you have to do it over again. Maybe you stuck in purgatory between something. And I use that to apply that to my life to make sure each day, and especially to myself now as I've grown up, that I'm trying to do positive things, that I'm trying to respond to people positively, that I'm trying to be patient and kind with my kid, with myself, and that I'm taking opportunities and not worrying about whether or not someone has a hidden agenda. Like I'm just leaning into things, knowing I get to decide what information I keep. I get to apply whatever advice I receive. But just to be patient and kind to one another is the end of the day. It's positivity.
Love that. Great message. Great way to end this incredible interview. Leigh, thank you so much for everything that you're doing. Thank you for your time today and sharing your story. And I wish you continued success with your movement. And we all thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Stefan. And thanks for all you're doing. Thanks for everything you do to educate people, to help them live their best lives. Thanks for showing up authentically time over time over time and allowing people to know that it's okay to step into your greatness and like just keep going. And I love that. I love that we're connected. I said to you on a comment the other day, like,
Yes.
It must be good timing. But no, I love that you're authentic and that you're here to help others. So
well, thank
for
you.
being you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.